This is another example of recursion, following on my previous video that I've put up yesterday. So I want to show you how to create a recursion method, and assuming you already know what recursion is and why you need it. So I've got a method called accumulate down, and I call my method with a variable num, and num starts with 3. So when I go to my accumulate down method, it gets 3 as the first input parameter, so it starts with 3. Okay, now in my recursion method, I've got to have firstly my termination condition, or my base case. Okay, so when must the recursion stop? Because the recursion must stop. So here I've got to have some type of if condition that would determine if my num has reached the value of 0. Okay, so when I've got 0 in num, then it must stop the recursion. So in other words, I put return num that will exit from this recursion method. So I've got to start with a stop condition. So the minute that the method is called with a value, the first thing it checks to see if it must actually continue with the method. And now in my else, I can now do whatever I need to do. And here is whatever I need to do. Okay, so I'm going to print num. Now my return actually calls, so the return on the whole method, it actually calls the same method again. Okay, but now with num minus 1. So here I've got my recursive call. So in other words, I have to make sure that num is going to reduce, so that at some point num can actually get to 0. So when I call my recursive method, I call it with a value that's 1 lower. So it would actually get 2. And num now actually changes, which you can't see, but num actually now changes into a 2. So is 2 0? No, it isn't. So print 0. Now 2 minus 1 is 1, and the 1 goes there. Is 1 equals to 0? No, it's not. Okay, so now call it again. Num minus 1 is 0, so call it again. So 0 is 0 equals 0. Yes, it is. So now it's going to stop. So you've got to have something in your method that's going to reduce your control variable, and in this case it's counting down, accumulate down. So I've got to reduce it, where of course you can start with a smaller number, then you've got to increase it. But what I'm trying to show you is that this recursive call, where it goes back on itself, it actually has got in the parameter, it reduces the value of the calling parameter. So the control parameter is reduced here where I call it again.